discussed in detail. What are the key parameters from a GRC standpoint and processes, and how effectively we can execute these cyber resilience programs in organizations, being in the role of CISO or around. Now, while being a tech leader or being a CISO, it's a pivotal or imperative that we have to understand our business challenges, which we are part of, in order to contribute to improve, enhance, and optimize business operations, to achieve the maximum profit levels, sustainability, and expected resilience. From a very same concept, in the past we have arranged one session discussing about this thing, where most of the experts who are sharing the panel today, again, same way, have shared their opinions that how effectively we can have a governance mechanism to develop and execute an effective cyber resilience program. In the past session, we have more discussed about the governance mechanisms, where we, due to the shortage of time, we couldn't touch upon the more technical aspects of driving the cyber resilience efforts in any organization, where SOC and related cyber components plays a very important role. So today, we will have a more deeper dive discussion on the technological aspects of cyber resilience efforts in any organization. And that's why there are 4 guests which were invited who will be sharing the panel with us, and I will moderate the session. So all the participants are requested to hold your questions. You can write your questions in the chat panel, and there will be a 1-hour discussion, and then the half an hour will be dedicated only for Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. So I'll kick off with start inviting my guests. So I'm I'll start with inviting my first guest from Qatar Development Bank, Hans Thomas, who is heading the information security, cybersecurity, and governance practices in Qatar Development Bank. He has 25 years of experience in the field, and he holds the MSc in IT and information security, and he holds several industry-related certifications. I warmly welcome Hans on the panel. Then our next guests, who are very special guests, who are accepted our request today, is Dr. Malik. Dr. Malik has extensive experience in designing and executing cyber accelerated resilience strategy for a diverse range of customers, and has a record of achievement in improving the security posture of organizations through proven leadership in strategic planning, establishing information security management systems, cost-effective security mitigation strategies, innovation for industry leaders such as IBM, EDS, HP, and KPMG. He also is a member of Australian Signals Doctorates, Information Security Registered Assessors Program, which endorses qualified and experienced ICT professionals to provide information security services advice to the Australian government. He is also editor-in-chief for Information Security Buzz, which is ranked as top 20 information security influence brands around the globe by Analytics. He is a recipient of a PhD degree in Computer Science and Engineering from Sydney, along with several other professional certifications. I warmly welcome Dr. Malik on the panel. Then we have another guest of ours, Ms. Sarah Al-Mawlawi. She has 14 years of experience in cybersecurity and has been working in telco industry from 7 years. She possesses 2 academic degrees and several cybersecurity certifications. She has led a number of medium and large projects and worked on improving the maturity of cybersecurity in Ooredoo. Warm welcome to you, Sarah. And our last guest for today is Rashid Hidayat, who is certified and seasoned cybersecurity professionals, having more than a decade and a half experience in multiple domains. He's working in the financial industry as a business information security officer, covering governance, cybersecurity program management, regulatory compliance, operational resilience, and so on. A warm welcome to Rashid to you on the panel. Once again, I feel privileged in introducing all of you, and once again, warmly welcome. Now, without any further delay, we will kick off our discussion, and I'll start with throwing my first question I'll start with Sarah. So Sarah, let's start with the discussion. So as we have previously discussed, the cybersecurity resilience programs requires, we need to design it in a way to consider people, process, technology aspects, where we need to design an effective mechanism, governance mechanisms around that to ensure the sustainability of the organizations. So from a technological part, what do you think that, first, let's define, what is the Security Operations Center and why we need to have it in any organization, in your opinion?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Yes, so a Security Operations Center is typically have all the cybersecurity tools in place with the team that have the capability to monitor and detect cybersecurity incidents or attack on the spot. It is very important that the SOC is a full SOC, like having level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 1 typically receives the tickets for any incident that is detected, and then they report it to L2, where they analyze it further, and hence to L3 to further investigate and respond. So, and an incident response, like in a typical incident response that consists of a preparation where the SOC needs to be in place together with all the tools and mechanisms that provides visibility into the technological infrastructure of the organization from a security perspective, and to be able to detect incidents in a timely manner, so the team within the SOC will be able to respond and mitigate and contain the incident utilizing their own tools. The SOC consists also of preventive tools that prevent cyber attacks from happening. SOC would also have something like threat intelligence and all to ensure readiness and proactive manner of preventing and detecting attacks.
Exactly, and very insightful answer. It's basically, from my standpoint, it's a pivotal to have a capability in any organization to be able to detect any such cyber incidents which are going on, because from a cyber security standpoint, the most dangerous incident in cybersecurity is which goes undetected. So I'll take the same question to the next level, and I'll pose the same question to Hans. What are your views about this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a SOC is not it's not a luxury these days. It is something that is a must-have because one of the primary functions of a SOC that an organization benefits is the 24/7 visibility, monitoring, detecting, and alerting. Now, this is very important because the workforce, the timings, this varies. So the 24/7 visibility, detection, monitoring, and alerting plays a very vital role in our in our defense against cyber attacks. So in addition to what Sarah said, SOC is definitely a must-have for organizations that take security seriously.
Exactly. I mean, and as you very rightly said, that it's not a luxury anymore; it's a need of the time, and the organizations are not left with any option without taking the security very seriously. So I'll just take the privilege to request Dr. Malik to request him, like, I mean, his views about this thing. I mean, why we need to have the SOC today in any organization.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. So hello, hi. Before starting with because why do we need CSOC or the SOC? I think it's better to define what exactly is the cyber resilience, because we're talking about cyber resilience. So what happened, I went through a different definition of the cyber resilience, the definition from World Economic Forum, but what I like is the definition from the IT governance of the UK. So they define a cyber resilience is the ability to prepare for, respond to, and recover from cyber attacks. It helps an organization protect against cyber risk, defend, engage, and limit the severity of the attack, and ensure its continuous survival despite an attack. So this is generic definition. Out of that, what I come up with what exactly is cyber resilience. We can phrase in the two things. One is being ready. Being ready means it's ready to defend, ready to respond, and ready to recover. So that's the one part. But the other part, which is more important, is knowing that you are ready. So how can you ensure that you are ready? And that is the SOC will be able to help us to understand that how quickly we are able to respond, how quickly we detect an incident, so what are the risks associated with the business and other things. So I think in any strategy, when I developed the cyber resilience strategies, because the SOC is also one of the component of cyber resilience strategy, I actually use 5 pillars, or you can say 5 lenses, which is first, your cyber resilience strategy should address your business initiative. So whatever the business initiative that the cyber resilience should be able to, and that's what the people call the cyber resilience to be enabler of the business. The second point is you need to identify the risk, and the cyber resilience should be able to address the risk that you identify. The third one is to increase the cybersecurity maturity of any organization. Because if you look at the cybersecurity maturity, there's a different component, and SOC is one of them. And that's where you need to identify your current state and where you want to move into the forward state. The fourth is that when you develop a cyber resilience strategy, it will also help you to compliance with the regulation. It depends on the industry, so where you're working. And lastly is the important thing, when you present your cyber resilience strategy to the board, you need to have a cost option with a different cost. And that's, if you look at this 5 lenses or the 5 pillars, and then you can start developing your SOC strategy accordingly. Like it's very important. So when you set up the SOC, right, to understand what are the crown jewels. If you don't understand the crown jewels and you get all the logs for everything, that will not help you. And once and if you come to the maturity, you need to understand where are and how quickly the company want to spend the money, whether they want to go it for the managed services. Because I seen in my experience, if you go onto the managed SOC, you will get a maturity very quickly, and that is very good for the organization which is starting from very low maturity. So they can purchase the managed service.
Yes, you have absolutely, actually, you have defined the foundation of the overall cyber resilience program, which we have spoke about that in quite a bit of too much detail in the previous in part 1. And then you have laid out the foundation very beautifully in a way by highlighting a very important point that when organization will know that they are ready.
Yeah,
This is, I'll park this point for our later discussion. Just I need to take I need to move on to Rashid's, like his views about the SOC and the importance to have of having a SOC in any organization. Rashid?
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. So basically, as all my colleagues mentioned, different aspect, I will just go back to the basics. The SOC, the main purpose of SOC is to detect, analyze, and respond to any security incident, right? That's the main objective. And in order to do that, we need to have people, process, and technology. So we need to have a centralized team, a specialized people who knows the process, who know the technology, and they are ready, they are prepared, they are trained to handle the incidents. That's the basic concept which help us in achieving the resilience. Either it's an operational resilience or cyber resilience. So considering this, SOC is a main and important pillar of achieving that goal. And one of the key aspects that nowadays added into the SOC, beside detection, analysis, and response, is to prepare to be detective rather than reactive, right? So now the threat intelligence part also came into the picture, and also embedding in the SOC model, so that when the organization, alongside analyzing and reacting to the incident, they are prepared for it as well. They monitor the market, they monitor the industry, they monitor the threat actors, and if they foresee anything that is happening across the world in the industry, they make sure that they are prepared for it as well. That's another aspect that is recently added to the SOC model as well. So I believe that's the whole summary of it, along with the points that were mentioned by my colleagues here.
Yeah, you very rightly said, like, if we don't plan, we plan to fail. So those organizations who proactively plan in order to face those cyber threats, when they need to, and that's basically enhances the need to have the SOC today. And as Dr. Malik rightly said, that highlighted a very important point, that when an organization will feel that they're ready, or then when they will come to know. That's a big question, actually. So I'll move on this thing, because in relation with our core subject, cyber resilience is an organizational and enterprise level initiative where all the C-suite people have to get involved. They have to have a mechanism in order to coordinate and collaborate with other teams within IT and non-IT as well, and so on. So as an organizational incident response capability from a cyber attacks, Hans, what you take, how SOC can help in strengthening the overall organizational cyber incident response capability?
I think Dr. Malik mentioned many of the salient features and the benefits of SOC playing a pivotal role in the cyber resilience of an organization. Now, the skill set that the SOC analyst would have, responding to an incident depends on how efficiently we respond and how effectively we respond. Now, if there is a time gap between the incident occurring and the time that we take to respond, this window of gap can be very costly to an organization if it results in an exploit that actually breaches your environment. So the efficiency part plays a major role here. So the main benefit from a SOC is the ability to if you establish SLAs upfront, you define categories of incidents as in P1, P2, P3, and P4. So priority 1 requires a call, not just an alert sending, not just sending an alert. So when a CISO, I mean, then there's an escalation matrix. So when the call comes to the organization, you know it is important. That is why SOC is calling you, right? Now this is very important. So the efficiency in how you how soon you detect an incident, identify whether that's whether it's a critical incident, and the mitigation, the countermeasures that you do, the counteractions that you do, is very crucial for an organization. So this is one of the major benefits from a SOC, from having a SOC in your cyber resiliency program. We also benefit from the skill set, the industry benchmarks. We leverage on use cases that they have developed. At the same time, one of the common pitfalls is you might have a technology stack. You might have a technology stack from cloud to database, but all those solutions, I mean, just one of the common pitfalls in management is, okay, we have invested in technology, we have bought this solution, you have this, you have DDoS solution, you have application control, you have network security, you have all these. Yeah, we have all that, but they also have to be monitored. The alerts have to be seen. We have to analyze them. So that is where this, without having that analytical component, having those solutions won't be the armor. So this is where SOC comes into play, and this is a very important aspect of it. So also, I want to say, yes, a SOC will bring a certain level of like Dr. Malik said, an organization can benefit from their maturity as a SOC, because if you start as scratch, then you will take some time to reach the maturity level. But when you go with a seasoned SOC, you are entering with a substantial or significant maturity level. But the maturity level of your SOC also depends on how mature you are. You need to give them what you need to see. Otherwise, you'll only benefit from what is there as off the shelf. You need to tell them, I want to see this, I want to see this, and I want to be, if this happens, I want you to call me. If this happens, I want you to email, send an alert. And the richness, the context of the alert that is sent, the information that is there helps us to make a decision, and determine whether this requires, determine the course of action based on the alert type. So this is what I feel.
Absolutely. I mean, you have highlighted 3 important points in this, like not just to highlight. And one is that strict alignment on the overall operational, organizational resilience. Second thing is the technology stack has to be well integrated. If we really want to see what we want to see happening down there. So I'll take this same question to the next level to Sarah, that generally we have observed, like in the organizations where even if they claim to have the SOC, but the technology or the security components, they are not well integrated. They are not well dealt in. So in such cases, they are not being able to respond effectively on such incidents. What's your take on that, and how we can solve it?
Yes, you touched upon, you highlighted a very important question and point, actually. Yes, the integration part of the SOC tools and the mechanisms are crucial to a successful SOC or an effective and efficient SOC. I think there is a dependency on IT having a good asset management in place when it comes to what are the critical systems, what are what they have an inventory of all systems, and that's the pain point for every security team, especially SOC, that organizations may not have an up-to-date inventory of all the systems, including the critical systems and the decommissioning process and all of this. Those are very important elements for the success and effectiveness of the security tools, monitoring and detection techniques. If those are not integrated, and the preventive as well, if those are not integrated adequately with your crown jewels, then whatever technologies you have invested in your SOC are just a waste. And I highlight and emphasize on those points that Hans has highlighted when it comes to the skill set of a SOC is crucial, because they need to make sure that they don't overlook some alerts, and that's you do have the technologies, you do have the mechanism, you have the integration, but because of some lack of some skill set, some alert and critical alert was overlooked. So that's very important. But everything starts with having a proper asset inventory and management. This is where SOC begins, and this is where it ends, really, because when you have that fully integrated, fully managed, then you will have good visibility in SOC, and you will not end up with that phase between a cyber attack happening and detection. The detection of the incident is happening. That window will be narrowed. But as long as that integration element is a big gap, you will always have that window.
Well, absolutely. I think when the having a proper asset management is, I would say, is a prerequisite of having an effective SOC and incident response capability. Because if we don't have a proper means of identifying and recording our assets in the organization, we'll not be able to draw a full story of the breach attack. And then that will basically create a hurdles in the investigations. Very, very important, beautifully highlighted. I'll take the next, the same question from a well-integrated security components in the technology stack. How critical it is in terms of, like, a skilled analyst to respond into such situations. Dr. Malik, your comments on this, please.
Yeah, like if you look at from a SOC perspective, from whatever from a business perspective, whatever the SOC, the value proposition that SOC bring to the business is to reduce the average cost of the incident. And that, in order to do so, what is important thing for any SOC, if you look at different categories of the SOC, one is like the compliance SOC, which is the people establish the SOC only to do with the compliance because that's the compliance requirement. The other is, I can say, immature SOC. You deploy all the technologies, but you don't have the skill set. And in that SOC framework, there's a very little growth on that one. So what we need exactly is a SOC which is highly competitive. So it's not only the technology, but also the people. And that is what is more important for this SOC that will strive it, and that will give us more benefits onto that one. And that's what the skill set is really important. It's not only the technology, but the skill set on top of that.
Absolutely. Even if we have the world's best and the strongest technology or stack, and if we don't have a proper skilled manpower on the ground, I think it's still a disaster on its own. So how to manage the security stack. So I'll take the discussion to the next level by posting a question to Rashid. That means, Rashid, what's your opinion in while developing the cyber strategy? What are the key considerations from your point of view the CISO should consider strengthening their overall cyber incident response capability?
Well, as my colleagues mentioned, it's all about efficiency, right? How we can achieve an efficient SOC, right? An efficient SOC can result into an efficient resilient program. So the most important aspect is governance. SOC is not a standalone team, right? SOC consists of business as well. There is a part of business as well. I consider SOC or the overall resilient program as team of teams, which consists of people, process, and technology, right? We covered all three parts. We covered the importance of having a good technology. We covered the aspect of having the strong people with a skill set. Now, the next part is process. If business is not integrated, as my colleague mentioned, with or realigned or aligned with the strategy, then these model cannot work. Business should specifically know what is our target, what is our goal, what are our crown jewels, what we need to protect, what processes needs to be resilient, which processes have the most critical aspect, and then accordingly, all rest of the teams work for the same goal, including SOC. So in some of the cases, especially in case of cyber incident, technology can detect, right? It can immediately detect. It can generate an alert. The main thing is response. The most important part is response. If you want to reduce the time between an incident and recovering from an incident, we have to be, quick in response. And response, again, if we break down, first the containment, then mitigation, then preventive, and all these steps are part of the process. I will not go into those details. But what I'm trying to say here is the response required input from the business, from the management, from the command team. If command team doesn't know what process, what inventory, what businesses, what impact, either from a legal point of view, from a regulatory point of view, from a client experience point of view, from a financial point of view, can happen on the process, they will not be able to decide quickly, because time is money in this case. You have to be quick. You have to have all the relevant information, which is up to date. If you have data that is 6 months old or 1 year old about your assets or about your technology or about the processes, then you may take a wrong decision. And any wrong decision can lead to worsen the situation rather than improving it. SOC. So there is a balance between handling a response. Some of the actions are actually owned and managed by SOC, but the rest of the actions are owned and managed by the business. For example, if SOC detects that there is a password breach or there is a system breach, and they want to take an immediate containment action, the first action, they want to reset all the passwords, right? Reset password for all the stuff. Now that decision lies with the SOC, so that they can immediately contain the action. But at a business end, if there's a cutoff time, if there's a critical process that can be impacted, now business has to be aligned with those actions. SOC needs to have an authority to take that action, and the business needs to have the leverage or the process in place to handle such situation where, for example, there's a huge flow of data going outside, or they disconnect. SOC take an action to disconnect all the external connections, or they disable the external email, or they disable the attachments, that no attachment will come in, no attachment will go out, to contain. Then at that point in time, business needs to decide how we are going to run that process, So
Right.
In order to do that, the main important part is documentation. Mm-hmm. As Han mentioned, we need to have documentation. We need to have those scenarios, those systems, those processes document. And that leads to the second most important part, which is practice, practice, practice.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I would think you have highlighted quite important points, which are not only important from a strategy point of view, in fact, from an operational excellence point of view for the success for any SOC. But one key point, actually, yes, efficiency is important, which is pivotal for the success, timely response, and that cannot be achieved without an adequate alignment or well collaborated effort with the business and IT. However, there is a more fundamental and more important question, which I personally feel is effectiveness is more important than the efficiency. So while designing the cyber strategy, what are the key considerations from an effectiveness point of view? For example, when we look for different SOC models, there are different models we can adopt for any organization. Which model is more, for example, cost effective for our organization. So from a different models point of view, what are the key considerations for while designing the cyber strategy? I'll just request Sarah to just comment share her views on this thing.
Yeah, so as an input to a SOC strategy, you need to first understand what are your crown jewels. What are your crown jewels? What are you doing for a living? What is your organization delivering? What are the services that your organization is relying on for, revenue and income? And then you need to also make sure that you really understand your industry and your context. For example, what is the current threat landscape in your context? This determines and what is your business strategy as well and direction. You also need to know what are the technologies, where the technology is going to, because finally security is a SOC is a supporting function. It's to technology. So when the business, for example, decides to move to cloud or something, where is your SOC in that? How are you going to manage those? So you have to accumulate all those inputs, and you decide how you move with the SOC strategy. Will you have a managed service? Does managed service work for your favor? What about data privacy? What about data privacy by design? Are you willing to host is your integration with some external SOC exposes your PII information? So all of this should be in the mind of the strategy of SOC. So those are the very important elements that you need to cover for. What about zero trust? What about SASE that everyone is talking about? I mean, it's a continuous process. It's not like one strategy that will set forward. It keeps changing, and you need to ensure that all those points are addressed in your SOC strategy.
Exactly. So, I'll take the very point next to the Dr. Malik. We do have several considerations while deciding that SOC has to be or should be on-prem, considering the data privacy aspect, which Sarah highlighted, or we need to have a better, strong foundation of our SOC when it comes to the designing the SOC, while adopting the zero trust model and so on. What's your take on that, Doctor?
So if you look at the overall concept, like how the SOC will birth the SOC of this thing. Like in the old days, I used to work, we have a different logs. We need to collect the logs from different servers. We need to collect the logs from different firewall devices and other things. And that's where it gives birth to the SIEM technology. And what the SIEM do, they collect all the logs from different sources and give you one dashboard that will help you to analyze the incident accordingly. And that is, once you develop your strategy, the more important thing is that how do you collect all these incidents together? And they could be like if your organization, they operate at a different locations, right? So one approach the people say is a decentralized, but then that is also, I don't agree with the decentralized, because that will the whole idea of the SOC is to bring everything together and provide the one dashboard. And that's where the centralized approach would be more appropriate, even if you can have the people over there 24/7 in a different location, but wherever the dashboard, they gave it onto at the same location. The other thing, when you develop any SOC things, right, there is always a consideration, because we go through this one, and I work with the different agencies and organizations. There is always a debate whether to go into the managed SOC, right, or the in-house SOC. So let me tell you, for in-house is a good thing as compared to the data privacy, but there's a lot of issues on that one. It's not an easy to set up, especially with the resources. It's very hard to get the resources, because you need to have resources who are good with not only with incident and the forensics and other things. And that is sometimes the company prefer to use the third parties, right? who's already had experience with managing the SOC. So they were able to help onto that one. And that depends on your management support, how much money do you have, how quickly do you want to go into the maturity. So you need to choose that model accordingly. And then
Right.
depending on the metrics you set, how do you set for in-house or the managed services, so you can choose accordingly.
Yes, Dr. Min, you have highlighted a very interesting aspect. When just to expand on the same thing, when Hans, what's your take on that different models of like, having on-prem and there are key challenges on managing the on-prem SOC cost and skilled manpower, a lot of other, and there is we have like, when we outsource the SOC function, like, or acquire a SOC as a service, and there is like a third option. Sometimes companies usually opt for hybrid model. What's your take on that? Which option is right for which kind of company, and why we should go for that?
Yeah. Which type of model is right for which company would depend on the organization's business, the type, the size, and the sensitivity of the information they process, and the transaction types. Now, based on this, whether you have an in-house SOC or whether you go to an MSSP SOC depends on the appetite of the organization. Now, these days, not these days, now, I don't think there's any organization that would have, that wouldn't mind having a window open for being attacked. No, they all want to have 0 windows open. So this is a demanding, challenge from a business perspective. So how do we enforce it? So how do we manage it? So we have to have this. Now, as we started talking about this at the beginning of the session, if you have a SOC that is starting from 0, we will be at a disadvantage of not having the maturity level of what a matured SOC resources would have. Then the technology part, managing the technology, this aggregation of events coming into the SIEM as a single dashboard. So there is no clear answer to tell you that organizations should go with A, in-house SOC, B, managed SOC. And some organizations, but I also want to emphasize on something that Dr. Malik mentioned. In a head office branch network type organization landscape, decentralized SOC is not a good option because they'll be in silos, and the center, there is no visibility of what is happening there. It is not a practical approach to have decentralized SOC. So having a centralized SOC, whether it is on-prem or whether it is MSSP, it is imperative that you have a centralized SOC. Now, so when you look at the benefits of the SOC skill set, the SLAs that you in place, the use cases, the threat intel that we leverage from them, the efficiency, the alerting, the mechanism that you put in place, I would say for an organization that treats data, and Sarah mentioned about data privacy. This is a very important part because we hosting your SOC or the SIEM in a cross-border country where your information, your logs are shipped there, and this includes not just PII data, it also includes data that are that might impact the integrity of your assets. It's very crucial. So this is a very key factor when you are planning to decide which model you should take. So I would say if you look at mid-sized scale organizations and where business takes information seriously, I think, in my opinion, an MSSP service would definitely be an advantage because it is an extension. It's an extension of your function, and we benefit from the skill set, the use cases, the threat intel, etc., etc. So, but this is a personal opinion. If you look at I'm talking about mid-range organizations that are that are taking information security seriously, that are taking confidentiality seriously, that are taking PII data seriously, that are taking transaction data seriously. I think an MSSP service would be the most beneficial and cost beneficial option.
Right. So just to conclude on this point, I mean, we have highlighted quite a few considerations a CISO should consider while developing the strategy. Cyber strategy, considering the importance of SOC within the cyber resilience efforts, which is one is, as Sarah highlighted, that we need to know what are the crown jewels, the business requirements. Then Rashid put an important aspect of like having a proper governance in place. Dr. Malik has highlighted, the technology stack and the need to have the further considerations of different models and how we implement. And as we Hans explained that there are different models, and for each and every organization, there are, we need to assess all of the reasons to select the right model for the organization, because there is a privacy requirements, there is coordination requirements, and there is, and of course, efficiency requirements. But the most important, not the least, but just to add on, which I think which all of you would agree with me, is the factor to decide which model is good for is the cost. And today, the financial, the budgeting and investing in the cybersecurity efforts or strengthening the cyber incident response capability, that the cost factor is becoming, unfortunately, is a decisive factor in most of the, I would say, the industry sectors. Considering the government sector here in Qatar, we do have this challenge faced where a lot of important considerations have been missed out while giving a complete preference on the cost side or the financial value of it. So that's exactly what it is. That it's not a straightforward formula for any organization. Every industry needs are different. The role or importance of cybersecurity efforts are different. And each and every organization have its own internal challenges and the priorities to consider while it is when we look into the cyber resilience as an enterprise initiative. So considering the current rapid change in the industry, where there are a lot of the compliance requirements are being changed, the GDPR data privacy requirements are getting more stringent, and then there's a acceleration on the digital transformation through the cloud adoption and so on. I just wanted to put up a few the touch points while having this heading towards the closure of the discussion. Is that how do you think that the emerging technologies such as AI can help us strengthening the cyber incident response capabilities for any organization? Anyone would volunteer to start with? Sarah?
Yeah, let me take this one. Ahmed. See, what is the ultimate goal? I mean, putting myself as an end user, as the end user, what is the ultimate goal that I want to achieve by deploying any security solution? By deploying, let's say, end-to-end defense in depth architecture and governance architecture covered by a matured SOC. Let's say I have all this in place. What is the ultimate objective that I would want to have as an end user? Let me tell you. For me, like I mentioned, that the time to detect and the time to take action is vital for us. Now, what if we can rely on intelligence that can be fed in, and the blocking happens without the intervention of a human being? So I would, and the blocking should be accurate as well. It should not be false positives. Now, this is the next generation. This is the next level of maturity. When we receive threat intel, ideally what we do is we usually hypothetically raise a ticket to IT, and the respective administrator would push those IOCs to the devices. Now let's assume we receive threat intel on a Thursday evening, right? And we did our part. Security disseminates the IOCs to the administrator, but he might come back only on Sunday. So we have 2 days of exposure. Now, how do we get that? I want to be comfortable. I want to be able to not have the dependency on IT to be able to protect my environment. So we use a solution where we ingest the IOCs. This solution is integrated with my devices. It pushes the IOCs and I'm compliant. I am protected within a click of a button. This is the comfort zone that we want to be in. Now, with that comes the, again, that still there is a dependency of me pushing the IOCs, right? Now, for me, so the ultimate objective or the maturity is for us to benefit from technologies such as artificial intelligence, predictive threat analysis. Predictive is like telling you upfront that these IOCs might be an issue for you in 6 months' time and already taking action for it. Not waiting till it becomes the trending IOCs, not waiting till we receive an IOC to take action. So artificial intelligence and automation is for me the next gen of maturity.
Exactly, that's the idea of having the AI through the AI inclusion, that how we can improve our automation of our incident response capability, and to make less human intervention will make it more accurate and all that. So who is next? Anyone who would like to comment?
Yeah, I can go.
Yeah, sure.
When you deploy like a new technology or any solution, right? One of the principles with developing any architecture is that your prevention control should be higher than the sum of detection plus response. So when we're developing the new AI technologies, the idea is that we need to increase our detection and the response, and that is whatever the technology, AI, whatever the technology we need to do, we need to find out which of the component that technology is going to address our problem. And that's very important to understand what exactly is the problem is that before deploying the solution. And whenever the solution will comes in, then how does that solution will help us to address our issues or our problem. I can give you one interesting story about as we all know, in 1997, there's a match between the IBM Deep Blue and the chess master of the Russian. I think his name is Garry Kasparov. What happened at the end? The Deep Blue actually won that chess match. We all know about that thing. But what really happened? There was actually a bug in the AI that the Deep Blue start moving randomly, and that confuses the Kasparov, and then he lost that one. And that is what we need to rely on. The technology is not that all. There is human factors we need to consideration. Another thing is that we need to think out of box, that how can we use the AI to help us on that one. So that is my point for that.
Absolutely, that's quite a broader topic, though. I mean, how the AI applications can help in a cybersecurity field, but that's because with the help of threat intelligence, which is we are receiving, and how intelligently we are basically consolidating and correlating that thing, coming up with a more effective and efficient predictive analysis of what threats are coming towards us, can basically aid responding to such incidents more faster. So Rashid and Sarah, do you like to comment anything on this before we start the Q&A session?
I think we need to find a balance between what process can be automated and what cannot be, because as we mentioned, it's all about people, process, and technology. So it's not possible that technology will take over the people part. There has to be an expert and a skill set, a mindset in between to handle, to manage those systems, right? So we have to find a balance in between that, how AI can, let's say, manage the alerts or filter the alerts, try to find out the false positive, and then escalate or take action on the ones that really need attention or really need escalation. So we are not there yet, but I think that's the right way. That's the way forward. And hopefully soon enough, we'll have such technologies in place where even the mitigation actions and everything can be done by AI. But at the end of the day, as I said, there has to be a balance between the people and technology.
Right. Very beautifully said. So, since we are already done with the time for our discussion, so I'll just head towards our Q&A session. We're here. I think with the strong participation from a lot of the industry practitioners, they have posted a lot of questions. So I'll ask the first question, which is one of the participants has asked, how is the cyber resilience different from incident response? So anyone would volunteer to respond to this?
If we take it in a very simple manner, incident response is basically a reactive method only, where you are just responding to an incident, right? But resilience is a broader study, is a broader area where we are not only responding to the incidents, but we are preparing ourselves for the incidents. And on the other hand, we are preparing and we are making sure that even during the incident, our business continue to run, continue to function, continue to operate without any major disruption. So, because incident response, you only look for the incident, you only focused on how to contain, how to react, without considering the business side, but just to focus on the incident side. But resilience is a broader version where we are not only containing the incident, but also making sure that our business runs smoothly.
Right. So I hope that the participant have the answer for this question. So I'll move to the next question, which is again the same, our core foundational challenge for any CISO today, that how to convince business about the SOC or investing in the SOC, I would say. So who would like to volunteer? Sarah, maybe?
For that. Yeah, it's a big challenge, to be honest, given the allocation of budget and all. I mean, this is a common problem for any CISO and any organization. The budget will never be enough. But I think the key factor here is to ensure that the management and board are educated about cybersecurity. It is your role as a CISO is to educate your management and your board. Not just go and ask for the money. You need to educate them first and then go ask for the money. This is very important because they can, and the good thing, actually it's a good news and bad news when those cyber attacks that we hear about that is happening to those organizations, they play on the CISO's favor. Yeah, so we often end up with dual feelings, being happy and upset. Happy because then we know that more resources will be allocated, because the management and board might be scared of hearing about those incidents. So that plays that should be used actually as a tool to convince them, especially if there are incidents that are being reported within the industry, within the same business organizations. Then this will help a lot the CISO to convince the management, and also try to monetize the impact of having a cyber attack or a cyber breach to the organization. That should definitely help.
Right.
If I add a couple of points to that,
sure.
It's all about having a good, strong business case, right? If you have a strong business case, if you have the strong risk assessment, risk profile, you can convince the business, you can convince the management to agree to it, because then you will help them understand the benefit of having a SOC. Because it's always about having a cost-benefit analysis, right? No one will approve, no one will give you money unless and until they know what will be the benefit. So having a good risk profile, risk appetite, and a strong business case will always help you get those finances approved. And the most important part, which mostly people ignore or mostly people don't consider, are the social skills. CISO is one person who needs to have strong technical background as mandatory, but also a very strong knowledge of the business, knowledge of the processes, and a very good communication. Because without communication, nothing can work. You can write a report of 100 pages on a technical aspect, but writing only a one-pager, strong business case, justifying your requirement is a skill that we need to attain as CISOs that will help us a lot.
Absolutely, man. I think you, Rashid, you spotted on the bullseye here, where when it's a very important topic of mine, when I do have usually get into the debates of like what a CISO should, the leadership traits a CISO should hold. Well, generally, the dilemma of our region here that most of our CISOs today, which are practicing in a CISO position, are generally from a technical background. They are not like fully aware of like, how or to come up as a business visionary person. So they are not being able or very much found effectively been able to convince the board level people or C-suite people to translate their cybersecurity challenges into the business language and convince them that why we need to have this dollar value invested in order to ensure the sustainability of your business operations. So there is like.
Yeah, so one thing I need to add, because that's what I learned in my experience. Like as a CISO or cybersecurity, it is not our job to sell security solution to the stakeholder, but in fact, our job is to present them the risk so that they can make intelligent decisions. That is what the
Absolutely. I 1000% agreed. So before I think we need to move to the next questions, because questions are still keep coming. So next question is that the same question came that if the board is not tech inclined, is there any easy approach to convince them and get their buy-in for investing in a SOC setup? Who would like to volunteer?
I would say nothing is easy, especially in the CISO job. But just as we answered in the previous question, we need to have a strong risk profile. The one part of the strategy, cyber strategy, is to define your goal, right? Your strategy says where we are and where we want to be, right? Your current state and your end state. So that end state and that definition of your profiles help you draft a timeline, a project plan that right now we are standing here with these X, Y, Z risks, but business agrees that no, we want to eliminate those risks. Our risk appetite is lower, or we cannot afford these kind of risks. So we want to achieve this level. So in order to reach from current state to desired state, you need to have a plan. And that plan will help you design a business case, as we mentioned earlier. And business case, once you have a strong business case, once you are able to convince the board or the senior management in their language, what they understand from a business perspective, from a business impact analysis, I think it becomes easier.
Absolutely, it makes a perfect sense. To make them like convince in a right way. So the next question, I think I would request Hans to respond to that. How to govern the outsourced SOC? Hans, would you like to answer?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is very important. It's a very good question. Governing an outsourced SOC, it is basically driven by the contract that you have, the SLA, and the organization. Periodic audits of the SOC operations, independent audits, and controlled self-assessments are the tools that you use to, to achieve this. So basically, these are the tools that we use to, ensure that the governance part is also supported not from the organization only, also extends to our third-party service providers that include the SOC.
Right. So yeah, Sarah, just before you, just I think that I want to post a very relevant and connecting question that while governing a SOC, is there any implications from a different industry sectors point of view as well? Are there any differences while we are considering this, governing the SOC from a banking or telco perspective? Sarah, you can respond to the question, and if you would like to comment on my query as well.
Yeah, so I think to test the MSSP effectiveness to manage your cybersecurity is to do some red teaming exercise against them without them knowing, to check their effectiveness. This always plays in the favor, and it will highlight the gaps there. If they miss some alerts, then I don't know what you have missed in the past, but you need to do something right now, and you should be worried, really. So that's one thing that you need to bear in mind. So audits are important, as Hans has indicated, but do a red team exercise and see what their response is. Now, as an answer to your question, Ahmed, I think the decision to go for MSS or not is based on what you do for business. Now, if we are a technology or telco driven, then you host all the technologies. You should have a SOC. I mean, even having an MSS will not be able to manage your entire infrastructure of telco and enterprise, and you have thousands of systems and thousands of applications. You would overwhelm that poor MSS, and probably that cost-benefit analysis may not work in your favor. Actually, you would maybe better have your own SOC to ensure that you cover all the cybersecurity, and because you also host PII and your service availability is very important, and it's not like technology is your support function, it's your core business. So it differs from an industry to one. For banking, maybe, and maybe Hans will add to this, it's a support function. IT is a support function. It's not what they do for a living. They do banking for a living. IT is a support function for that. So they may have that option to have an MSS, and maybe Hans can cover that point from banking perspective.
Hans, you're on mute. Are you saying something?
No.
Yeah, okay. So I think that the next question is very much related to what Sarah said, like what are the key success factors and the KPIs for a SOC?
They detect your your alerts, all the alerts that your red team exercise do. They should detect all of them. This is the first KPI in a timely manner, and monitor the response, see their compliance to your SLA. The contract has to be very specific, and you have to define what is your P1, 2, 3, and 4. What are the responsibilities on the MSS? What is the responsibility on yourself? Because if that's not clear, then it will be very difficult to measure against, and it will be very difficult to govern.
I think, in my opinion, it's like when having the KPIs laid down, it's more important is defining the KRIs as well. That when it's not only the performance, it's the related risk as well, because we are in a risk business. That how many alerts the SOC has missed out. So the next question is very interesting. I think when it's coming from the OT background. So regarding OT and ICS, what does it take to integrate OT cybersecurity processes in SOC operations to become resilient in an industrial environment? And what are the biggest challenges you see facing OT cybersecurity today?
I can respond to that one. I don't have direct experience with the OT, but I have the experience working with a different technology, because I work with the cybersecurity architecture for better space communication and also work with the broadcast, which is more like same like the OT technologies. What important that the issues that we face, the corporate IT is very simple. There's a lot of in them, we can get logs and other things. There's always challenges associated with the technology we use for OT or the broadcast, is to get that visibility into the CSOC. And what we find, like I found from the experience, is to have the involvement with the stakeholders, with the business owners, and have a meeting with them and to find out what really is important. For the media company, the important thing is availability of this equipment, right? If you're doing a live match, right, the availability of that component is critically important. And that's why you identify, when you identify this crown jewels, and in our case, like the media is, say, availability, and that's where you need to design your SOC accordingly so you can get that visibility into that thing. And especially with the OT technology, similarly. So whenever you have to establish a SOC, it's very benefit to have the involvement from the stakeholders to understand what really is important for them and then design SOC accordingly.
Right. So I think it's, if I'm not wrong, you're referring to the IT and OT convergence and the layer, that how effectively the layers are converged and how better we can monitor. So that's, thank you very much, Doctor. So the next question is that how to add the effectiveness in doing cyber drills. Okay, if I'm correctly understanding that, how to execute the cyber drills effectively. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me take this question. So basically, the whole purpose, as I mentioned earlier, it's all about practice, right? When the real incident comes, you are ready to handle it. That's why we do the cyber drills. The most important part to achieve the effectiveness is to have the scenarios which have the most likelihood, that can really impact your business. It depends from business to business. There's no hard and fast black and white rule, what scenarios should be added, what should not be added, but it all depends upon the threats, threat actors, and the likelihood. Because sometimes what happens that people who are designing the drills or the simulations or tabletop exercises, they consider the scenarios which practically are not possible to happen within your organization. So when you are executing this tabletop exercise or cyber drill, the management team, the business or the operations or the technology who are actually participating at that drill will not see the relevance of the scenario with them. Because if I'm a business head and I see a scenario or a threat or an incident that can really impact me, then I'll participate, I'll think about it. But if that scenario cannot happen to me, then eventually what happens is that I'll lose interest in that drill. Mostly what we have seen that during the cyber drill, if the scenario is not strong, not realistic, in very simple sense, people lose interest. And when they lose interest, the participation is gone. The participation is gone, the whole objective of the cyber drill gone. So in order to have a good cyber drill, make sure that the scenario that you choose is have a more likelihood or more realistic and more relevant to your business. I think that is the one of the part that can help you achieve the good efficiency or effectiveness.
Absolutely. So anyone else would like to join to comment on this, because it's a very important aspect of cyber resilience.
I would add to what Rashid has highlighted is that, the likelihood, and I think this can be utilized through the threat intelligence that you receive. You evaluate the relevance of that threat, and then you utilize that as a scenario for your cyber drill. You also need to maintain this like a long-term program, not only one-time event, because you would be able to see the pattern over multiple times. and set the KPI there and see the trends of your cyber drill. So you evaluate the maturity of the participants and what processes. I mean, if you do the cyber drill, what is the outcome of the cyber drill? Do you modify and update your processes in place? Were your tools able to detect that scenario or the simulation that you've done? Then that's what makes it effective. How do you follow up after the cyber drill? After you have done the cyber drill, what are the actions that you have identified? What are the gaps? What you need to close? And then how you do the cyber drill again to test those capabilities.
Right. So since we are heading towards the very last few minutes of the session before, where we want to take the final takeaways from each guest, the last question is, which I would like to request you to briefly respond on. That in terms of different SOC models, is there any specific model that can be applied for the smaller organizations? Anyone would like to volunteer, but briefly, please.
I will just take in one sentence. I'll try to explain. It all depends upon your business model, and your risk profile. If your risk is higher, regardless of the size of the organization, it depends which geography you are in, what is your business, what is the risk. Based on the risk, you can do the cost benefit analysis and see what option is feasible for your organization. It's not just one factor that can help you determine the right model, but there are multiple factors. But the core is the business model and the function and the risk.
Thank you, Rashid. So now we are heading towards the very last part of our session today, which is the final thoughts. So we'll start with Hans. Hans, what are your final key messages which you would like to give to CISOs as a takeaway for this session today? Hans, you're with us?
Sorry. Having connectivity issues. Sorry about that. Yeah. One of the takeaways is that, that I would like to say is that resiliency is all about redundancy. It's about being able to mitigate the exposure or the risk that is due to a cyber attack. So I think whilst having a matured SOC and a good resiliency program in place, the efficiency depends on how well you put that plan into test. How often do you test your cyber resiliency plan? How often do you test the efficiency of your SOC? Like Sarah mentioned, doing red teams quite often, doing VAPTs. When you do a VAPT, when you do VAPTs as a planned program, how often, how well is the SOC and the red team able to respond? This gives us this gives an understanding of how well we are ready in terms of mitigating the attack size or nature. So this is very important for us. So it is how often do you practice, do you test your plans? This is a key takeaway that I think CISOs should think about.
Yeah, so ensuring the effectiveness regularly on the capability to respond to such incidents is the key message. Dr. Malik, what would be your message, a last few takeaway, would you like to give to the CISOs?
I think I can summarize what are the 5 success factors for any SOC. So number one, and first important, as most of our panelists say, is to understand the business that you operate. So that's the first one. The second one is you need to understand what are the expectations of your higher management, what they are expecting you in setting up the CSOC. The third one is to understand what are your technical capability, where you stand, like your current state and where you want to go. And the fourth one is the crown jewels, what you are defending. If you don't know what you're defending, you can't be able to set up SOC. And the fifth, which is also very important, is the effective communication with the higher management in the language they understand. Not like we have like some of the language we have more like a technically, but for them is the money and their business is very important. So when you do the metrics and other things, you need to understand in their languages how does the SOC will benefit that. So these are the 5 points that I can propose as a success factor for any SOC implementation.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, Dr. Sarah. Your final messages?
Yeah, so as my peers have said that for CISO, you have a lot on your plate. And you shouldn't overlook anything, because if you overlook something, it will impact your whole the whole cyber resilience program. SOC is one element of a bigger picture of cyber resilience. Business, you have to be part of the business. You have to understand your current threat landscape. You have to understand your own crown jewels. What you do for what are the critical systems you have? What are the critical services that you have? And you base your decisions from there.
Thank you. Thank you. And at the end, Rashid.
Well, a lot been said about things. We know our CISOs are very experienced. They have technical knowledge and everything. I would say my advice, key takeaway, understand your business. Understand your business needs and develop your social skills, communication skills, because those are the ones that help you translate your knowledge and assess business in running a smooth and continuous resilient program.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rashid. So now here we reach to the end of the webinar. I mean, as a chairperson of Cytelect community, I would like to express my thank you for, thank the guests and the participants who have actually joined the session, contributed into the by asking the questions, and especially to the guests who have shared their knowledge and experience with us. And I look forward to have similar sessions arranged in coming few weeks as well. And I strongly request or suggest everyone to please step forward, reach out to me. You have my contact details. If anyone would like to contribute or join us as future sessions, please feel free to reach out, suggest your topics. We can host more sessions. It's a non-profit, independent knowledge sharing community for the cyber professionals and the cyber intellectuals like your good self. So this is how we can basically contribute in our give back to the community, what we learn, what we share. So sharing is caring, end of the day as well. So once again, thank you so very much. Have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for participation. Have a nice day.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.